It is round 8 of the British Chess Championship. I am sitting on 3.5 points out of 7 rounds that we have played, and I'm playing against a kid, so I know that I am mega cooked. I'm playing the black pieces and he goes for an English. So against the English I usually play this kind of setup where I go for d5 very quickly, defended by the knight, but since he takes in the center, I realize that if I take with the queen I'm going to attack the rook and basically induce a move like knight to f3, otherwise he is just going to lose the rook. And now the issue is that he's going to probably come out with the other knight and attack my queen, and I realize, wait, I'm not actually that familiar with this type of structures. Why did I bring my queen out this soon? I should have just taken with the knight. So I go for c5, I gain some space in the center, and indeed knight to c3 attacks the queen and I bring it all the way back. Bishop to g2, natural follow-up to the move g3, making the space for the bishop to go to the fianchetto, and I develop my knight. Of course, knights before bishops, he castles, and now I need to prepare myself to castle too, which means that I need to decide whether I want to fianchetto or whether I want to bring the bishop to the center. Okay, he plays d3. Clearly he knows what kind of pawn moves we need to play in this type of structures. I'm already down 10 seconds, so I need to speed up a little bit. Bishop to d2 gets an inaccuracy, but I mean, there's no real way to punish this. It's just, I guess, not the best position for that bishop. Now the question is, should I just castle? Should I do something else? I played this move bishop to g4. Probably castling was the most sensible move, but I'm trying to induce h3 and then come back, and maybe with queen to d2 we can target that pawn. This is a maneuver that I learned from one of my old coaches. He activates the rook along this semi-open file. And now I realize, oh, okay, if I just castle, now a knight move is going to put significant pressure on that pawn, for example, knight to a5. And I don't necessarily want to do that because then I'm going to have to defend with b6, so I play rook to c8, and I prepare to defend that pawn with a rook. I will be able to, for example, jump into the center. He plays queen to a4. The opponent is playing a very good game here. I just castle. I don't want my knight to be pinned to the king, and the pawn here is still defended just by the knight. So everything is held together. The position is very equal. We're both playing the opening quite accurately here. Nothing to write home about. Okay, so now the opponent is looking for a plan, some kind of follow-up. Apparently bishop to g5 is the best move. I would have probably just met that with h6 and invited a trade of the bishop for a knight. I would have been quite happy with that. There's many ways that white can play from this position. They can try to poke at this bishop, they can try to maybe take the center, they can try to move the knight, and indeed it seems like the opponent is reaching for a knight perhaps. Yes, he jumps in the center with the knight, he's looking for this trade, but the trade is actually good for me. I should take, because if queen takes I have f5 defended by the bishop, and I am kicking the queen around while gaining significant space in the center. Now, this is not a move that I was planning to play. It didn't really make sense to me. Rather, I jumped in with the center with the knight. This seemed kind of like a natural follow-up to gaining that square and having the pawns looking at the center like that. Now I have a very centralized knight. If knight takes, I can maybe undouble my pawns. I can maybe come in with the queen. If the knight takes here, I can always take with the bishop. That's also fine. What I failed to realize is that the bishop on f6 is kind of off-placed. I want the bishop to stay here so that I can move my pawn. I can defend the c pawn with the bishop. So what is white going to do here? Oh, he's thinking about taking that knight. And indeed he does take it with his knight. The best move. This makes sense. He's also opening up the light squared bishop, which is something that you really want to achieve in this type of structures. The bishop is often the most powerful piece in these structures. And I decided to take back with the queen. This is by far not the best recapture. Taking with either pawn would have been better, but it's okay. We can do this. And indeed, white just takes back, and now there is no advantage. Apparently, the way to punish me here was rook to c4. But now I take back with a pawn, and the position is pretty nice. I have a solid center. I have some control over the open file. I am fighting for space. White trades, I take back with the bishop, of course this makes sense, and now we both have a bishop pair in a very balanced and equal position. There is really nothing going on here. f3 kicks the bishop away, probably h3 was fine too, but apparently f3 is better, not really sure why. Oh yes, because this pawn was hanging. So I bring the bishop back, and now a3 since the pawn was under attack, and b6 because my pawn was potentially going to be under attack soon. Okay, so the position is very equal. We need to try and make something happen. h3, maybe not the most precise. The opponent really should try to find a way for this bishop to come back in the game, because it's completely closed now by his own pawns and restricted by the rook, while I need to find a way for these bishops to come into play, and that's what I do with bishop to e7. It gets an inaccuracy, but I think this is a kind of logical move. It also frees up the f-pawn that can now move. The opponent correctly now pushes the pawn, reopening up the diagonal for the bishop, and I play f6, solidifying the center. I want to keep these pawns in the center. Now if takes, I'm gonna take back like this, but f5, best move by the opponent. Now I trade the rooks. If rook takes, I can just take back, but apparently that was the best move, because then the rook would have been able to come into my home. But instead now I just move the bishop back because the rook is still defending the pawn. Oh, I moved ahead of the video, but that's exactly what happened. Best move, of course, it makes sense, just a logical move. Now the opponent brings back the bishop into play. He's trying to bring the rook. I bring my rook to the open file, and so does he, but this is a blunder. Of course, he leaves the pawn hanging. So I just take the rook, bishop takes is forced, and I win a pawn. And now all of a sudden I am better, if not almost winning here, because the activity of this bishop is just beautiful, and I am up a clean pawn with no counterplay for white. So these bishops are along a very powerful diagonal. I am limiting the advance of these pawns. Maybe b4 can happen, but then I would be able to poke at those pawns anyway. The opponent is really unsure about what to do here. He pokes at the pawn in the center. Now apparently d takes e3 was the better play, but then after bishop takes, I don't know if we're actually achieving anything, although we are isolating this pawn that could become a target. I probably want to bring the king into the game as well at some point. We are in an endgame after all. I do take the pawn, bishop takes, and now we don't have a pawn as advanced, but we have created a pretty significant weakness in the position of white. We're also up on time. So this position is looking pretty good. I start bringing the king in. This seems like a logical follow-up to this plan. Apparently it was better to just go h5 and poke at the position. Now, okay, I'm kind of getting behind here. White gets rid of the isolated pawn. Very good move. It makes sense. That was a weakness, so if he can trade it away, he should. But black is still better, because being up a pawn in a double bishop endgame can be a pretty significant advantage. Okay, so now I start to go a little bit wrong. f5, maybe not best. I should have just taken instead. White takes. Of course, I should just take back here, and I take back with the pawn. I am still better, no problem. The bishop comes back, and now I should push the pawn e4 and create these connected passers, but instead I think that I'm winning a pawn. I kick the bishop away, and after the bishop moves, I take here, but I don't realize, oh my god, this just allows him to take back. And now I'm not even up material. I mean, I am for the moment, but then takes and takes, and yes, I have this extra pawn, but white is very close to just collecting the pawn with the king, and indeed he starts bringing the king closer to the position. My bishops are now not as big of an advantage anymore. The pawn is blocked. b4 attacks my bishop, forces it to move away. And now I realize I'm very likely going to lose this pawn. He goes after my pawns and finds this very nice maneuver that indeed wins the pawn. And now this is unfortunately just a completely drawn endgame. I kind of messed up this endgame that was winning for me. Although a pawn advantage is one of the most difficult advantages to convert. And so here the opponent offers a draw, and I just accept it because there is nothing here. The position is completely dead. I was a wise player for this game and simply drew it rather than winning it. So we end up on 4 points out of 8 rounds. We keep going with the streak of a 50-50 performance, pretty much 50% losing or drawing and 50% winning or drawing. And we go into round 9 with no possibility to get a great result, but still possibilities to get a decent result if we win the last game. 5 out of 9 is not the end of the world in an open tournament. Thank you so much guys for watching up until this point. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.